Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the next show in our series, Where's the Water? It's been a while since we did a show, and so we're going to refresh your memory a little bit about what this discussion is all about. I have with me today UPUD board member Dwayne Onito. And Dwayne, thanks for being on the show with us today.
Always fun to be with you, Merle.
Okay. And Dwayne, you remember, I'm sure, that at our last production, which took place hard by the after forebay of Utica Creek, we talked about the fact, well, we talked about several facts, but one of the main ones being that will UPUD be able to afford to keep the amount of water necessary in Murphy's Creek, Angels Creek, to satisfy not only domestic uses but also agricultural uses. There have been several things take place since that show, Dwayne, and so let's talk about that today. But before we do that, you've got with you kind of a relief map here, and let's show our viewers once again just about what area we're talking about. Let me get a mic over here to you first. Okay.
All right. I don't know where to. Okay. We talk about Forest Meadows, Hathaway Pines in this area here, and this is Highway 4. And the UPA water comes out of the tunnel tap here. We have the tunnel which runs from Spicers to Collierville, and UPA gets its water from the tunnel tap here into Hunters, and from the Hunters we put it into the Utica Canal, which comes down here. Of course, and this is Flume 14, the famous one that burned in the fire that we had to rebuild, and it keeps coming on down the canal here to the Murphy's Forebay. Then we put it through the penstock, through the Murphy's Powerhouse, which we all see off Highway 4, the After Bay right there by Highway 4, and then we come down Murphy's Creek up here through the park, and then it comes on down and to down below through Murphy's on down, and then if you go down to Murphy's Grade Road where you see the flume right here, this is the diversion dam here where we take it over to the reservoir here, and then down over to the Angels Reservoir, and then through the Angels Powerhouse here and back into the creek, Angels Creek, and back into Maloney's.
All right, Dwayne, several years ago, and many of our viewers will remember this, Calaveras Community Television did a series excuse me, on NCPA and the North Fork Project. Now, those of us who are familiar with the sketch that you just showed realize, of course, that this water is coming out of Spicers down the Stanislaus, and at that point belongs to NCPA, does it not?
It does. Correct. They have the right from the Federal Regulatory Energy Commission has granted them the right to run that project, yes. And
UPUD or UPA buys that water from them at what point?
Oh, we do not buy it.
Okay.
Again, we have an agreement with FERC has given, the Federal Regulatory Energy Commission has given us the right to take the water at the tunnel tap according to an elaborate chart that has been developed with the contract, originally contract between CCWD and NCPA, which that contract has now been transferred to UPA so that the flow of water is controlled by that contract between UPA and NCPA.
And that flow of water on a normal year, on average, constitutes how many cubic feet per second?
Well, it varies very much during the year, but it runs everywhere in the summertime from 50 cubic feet per second to down, well, depending on a really dry year, we could be down as low as 30 cubic feet, but those occur very rarely, and in that case, we would probably have to purchase more water from NCPA to meet our requirements that FERC has placed on us.
And those requirements must place certain demands, I'm sure, on both domestic and agricultural use. At this point, what percentage goes to agriculture? What percentage goes to domestic use? And is there anything left over?
Well, there is water left over at the present time. The City of Angels has no irrigation use. Union Public Utility District in Murphy's has half of its water for irrigation and half of its water for domestic use. And we are still in a situation where there is water reserved for us within the system where we could increase this. However, the problem is that in order to form UPA, what we had to do is we had to borrow considerable amounts of money, $3.7 million. And so right now, instead of delivering this water to Angels or to Murphy's, what we're doing is we're having to hold the water to run it through the powerhouses to generate income to pay off the loans. So that while there is water available there, right now we are using that water to repay the loans to keep UPA functioning. And we have managed to do a pretty good job of that. In 8 years, we originally went in for $3.7 million, borrowed to do this with the help of CCWD, and we're now in $2.3 million. So we have gotten $1 million in 4 years taken care of, $1.4 million taken care of in 8 years.
And parenthetically, folks, you may remember a little incident a couple of years ago called the Darby Fire, which burned up the flume that you folks were quite dependent upon.
Well, sure, and everybody was, and everybody suffered, and everybody sacrificed greatly to get us through that particular crisis. But at the same time, that to me means that we should be able to even generate more income from the use of the water. Once we get the loans paid off, and who knows when that's going to be, because it all depends on the power, the cost of power. And when that happens, then we can start looking at maybe increasing the water supply and various other things. But it's very iffy in terms of how much the power. Right now, the City of Angels and UPUD, City of Angels free, UPUD for peanuts, get this water here because the power pays for getting the water here. And if the price of power is high, UPA makes good money, we pay off loans, and things are wonderful. Price of power goes down, and then UPA has real problems. And when I'm talking about that, when we started this project, we started at 22 cents per kilowatt hour. As soon as we took the project, it dropped to 16, and we all thought we were going to go bankrupt. And eventually it wound up to 30, and then it went crazy with the in-run thing where it was up $1.90 a kilowatt. And right now...
And you thought you'd died and gone to heaven?
Well, yeah, except we never got the money because PG&E went broke, and there's still $500,000 sitting out there that if it ever gets paid would come to UPA. Anyway... I've lost my train of thought here.
Well, let me interject something while you're thinking about it. Our viewers now who are viewing this are saying, well, this is somewhat ethereal to me. I mean, I kind of understand it, but then on the other hand, I kind of don't. How is it going to affect me, the homeowner, or how is it going to affect me, the developer, who wants to put in more homes? And then the farmer says, how is it going to affect me because I want to put in 200 more acres of vineyard?
Well, it's going to affect the farmer most of all right now because UPA is using half of its water for agriculture, and we have a waiting list for people who want to put vineyards in and who want water that we cannot serve right now.
And Paul, you might want to take a shot. This turned out to be quite a coincidental thing, but behind us, out here at Couts Ironstone Vineyard, is a hillside that has been prepared for planting into vineyard, and that isn't going to happen unless or until something changes with respect to UPUD, right?
I don't know. I don't know anything about. I know Couts does sell water. I mean, UPUD does sell water to Couts during the May and the early part of the year when our allotment is not maxed out like it is right now in the summertime. And I know that they buy water from the Murphy Sanitary District, and I don't know what their plans are as that type of thing, although I do know that there's not any more water coming from UPUD for this particular situation at this time. So, but they may have something else in mind here that I mean, it would seem to me that if they're going this far, they must have some other plans to develop that.
So the point is, if I am a new vineyardist in the area, and I've been here for a while and I own my property, now I'm ready to develop 100 acres of it, and I come to you folks and say, I need some water, at this point, what are you going to tell me?
I'm going to tell you, if you need water for frost control in April and May, I am perfectly willing to sell it to you. If you need water in June, July, or August, or September, you better build yourself a big reservoir or a tank or something so I can deliver that water to you earlier during the winter time and you can store it.
Okay, now affecting a greater amount of people. I'm a developer, and there are a lot of new developments around the county now, as we all know, increasing dramatically all the time. And now I come to you and say, look, I've got a plan here. I've owned some property. I got a plan to develop 250, 300 homes out here. What are my problems, if any, getting water there?
It's going to be a problem. If you come to me with 300 homes, since we have just taken a major development here at the old Bret Hart Center there that the Couches have put together there, this is putting us very close to our maximum allotment. And at this time, see, it's not a problem of getting more water. I mean, we can simply go to NCPA and say, hey, we want more water, and NCPA will tell us, well, certainly you can have it, but we have to pay for the loss of generation at Collierville. Now, domestically, we can probably handle that if we need to do that. I mean, it's one thing for somebody who's using 1,000 cubic feet or 2,000 cubic feet to pay for it, as opposed to an agriculturalist who is using 100,000. Well, that's a little high, but using you simply cannot recoup your investment here when you're going. So domestically, we feel, if we need to, we can probably do that. But what we're hoping, again, is that we can be able to create enough of a situation that we will be able to, that we'll be able to get UPA loans paid off, and hopefully we'll be able to generate enough, extra water now. Keep in mind that, as Paul has pointed out to us, it's very optimistic thinking on my part, and there could very well be a stopgap method where we may have to go and purchase more water from NCPA. Now, I'm talking from the Murphy's viewpoint, and of course Angels is in the same situation, although remember that all the Angels water will go through the Murphy's Powerhouse, which generates income for us. And the Murphy's Powerhouse is a bigger powerhouse than the Angels Powerhouse. So the key is to somehow balance paying off the loans and keeping enough water to cover the growth. And it's going to be a very tough juggling act.
And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may not have been around the county for a long while, he's talking about powerhouses. Let's go back to a comment that he made regarding the Collierville powerhouse. You need to understand that one of the primary reasons for the North Fork project was to generate a huge amount of electricity coming out of the Collierville powerhouse. Collierville is located down by Camp 9 on the Stanislaus River, well below the McKay's Dam area. And when Dwayne talks about taking water away from that Collierville powerhouse project, obviously they're losing money, and so somebody's got to pay for that, and it's going to be UPUD.
What, I think that project cost them like $389 million or something to put that whole thing together, to increase Spicer's, build a tunnel, and build a powerhouse. And obviously they need to recoup their cost also. Now,
Dwayne, let's pretend now that everything is going along swimmingly, and we're having a good year water-wise and so on. What are our problems now for UPUD in their relationship with NCPA vis-a-vis looking down the road 30 years, 25, 30 years, and suddenly there is a crisis arise? What kind of a contract do you have in place with them, or do you, that would take care of that?
we have a contract, but if we're going 30 years, our license is for 30 years, so we're going to have to go through this whole process again in 30 years, all over again to get new licenses taken care of. So any crisis that might occur 30 years from now would be covered by a new situation. And the hope would be that 30 years from now we would be able to renegotiate the contract and guarantee and see if we could get more water coming this way as opposed to going through Collierville Powerhouse, coming down through Murphy's and Angels Creek. The situation right now is covered by a contract that was worked out with CCWD and NCPA when PG&E pulled out its application for the project. We feel, we being UPA, Utica Power Authority, feel that there's some inequities in that, and we are currently attempting to negotiate with NCPA some of the things that we feel are detrimental to UPA and are not particularly right, and so we are attempting to set up a meeting with some of their board members to meet with our board members to discuss that situation.
Has that been stalemated? Where are we in those negotiations?
Well, our proposal is ready. We have asked them and submitted a couple of dates to them to ask them if they could meet on those dates, and we are waiting for their reply now.
Is this, as far as you can see, going to be a win-win kind of proposal that you're going to make to them, or are you going to be asking them for some concessions, and in turn are they going to be asking you for some?
Well, we say very much it's a win-win situation, but I don't know how much they're going to agree. Okay. It's certainly win-win from our side, but again, the contract is in place, and certainly I think they're perfectly within their rights to say, hey, the contract was signed and you may point out all these inequities. At the same time, they may say, yeah, you're right, this is an inequity and we need to correct that. As they have done in the past, they have, just last year we changed the time. The contract stipulates how much water is flowing down the Stanislaus River during the year, and this figure is compiled by the Department of Water Resources, and they will tell us before. It used to be in April. April 1st, they would say, oh, this is how much water we expect to go down to Stanislaus, be it 500,000 or be it 100,000 acre feet or whatever. Last year, as you may recall, it was dry until May, so that all our situation was such that we were in a situation where if they had used the April 1st deadline, we would have been in a serious drought year, even though it rained all of May and picked us up to a regular year. And NCPA renegotiated and was willing to change that date from April 1st to May 1st last year, and we were able to go with a regular year. So it's not as if they are. Of course, this year it worked just the opposite because it was really a dry May, and in April we would have been in a wet year, but by the time May 1st rolled around, we had to drop down to our first semi-drought year. So, but it's not as if they have not been willing to discuss and work with us and do these types of things. So we're hoping that when we point out our situation, that they will say, yes, that's a reasonable request.
Okay, we've pointed out some problems here, obvious problems, some really major problems. Now, as the viewer and as the homeowner out there, is this crisis a real crisis? Is it an immediate crisis, or is it even a crisis?
Certainly, it is not a crisis for anybody who is here and in the place. I mean, we are not going to go out and create more developments than we can serve. If you're talking about a crisis for a developer who wants to come in and do a whole bunch of homes, it's getting close. It's not right there. It's not there yet, but it's getting close. If you're talking about an irrigationist who wants to put in a new vineyard, yes, it's not going to happen from UPUD.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have the latest in our Where's the Water series, an update with Dwayne Anito representing UPA. And once again, Dwayne, happy to have you with us because you're very concise and you kind of tell it as it is, and that's the way it's got to be. And we appreciate you being with us again today. We hope you folks have enjoyed this show. Once again, we will attempt to bring you another update the next time something significant happens with respect to the water in the UPUD area, and we're talking here about Murphy's and Angels Camp. In the meantime, if you're interested, I'm sure Dwayne would encourage you to come to the UPUD board meetings and listen in as to what's going on. Am I right?
Well, we've been using sort of interchangeably here. We have all these initials. UPUD is the Union Public Utility District, and Murphy's that is responsible for delivering water. Murphy's, Vallecito, Carson Hill. We have the City of Angels, which is responsible for the City of Angels. We have UPA, which is responsible right now for getting the water here for UPUD and the City of Angels. I serve as an elected official on the UPUD board, and I am appointed from the UPUD board to the UPA board.
Now, if that didn't thoroughly confuse you. At any rate, please take an interest in this issue. Water is critically important. A friend of ours who used to be here in the county with CCWD, Steve Felty, who many of you remember, told Paul Muller and myself one day that the time was going to come in Calaveras County when water was going to be a lot more important and valuable than gold. And certainly it looks as though what he has said is going to be true, and we need to protect this treasure as best we possibly can. And Dwayne, we thank you for your efforts in this regard. For my producer and director, Paul Muller, this is Merle Luckin. We'll see you on Calaveras Community Television.